Now what in the heck is Sunset Overdrive? Well, to put it simply, it's an incredibly fun, funny, and underrated third-person shooter. Let me explain. Sunset Overdrive is an action-adventure shooter developed by Insomniac Studios and published by Microsoft Studios. In 2014, it was released as an Xbox exclusive and it met pretty high ratings. Although it did fall under the radar a bit, probably because it was solely an Xbox exclusive until 2018, and the fact that it had competition with games like Assassin's Creed Unity, Shadow of Mordor, COD Advanced Warfare, and yeah, I know these games are nothing alike, but if you look at only the sales numbers and release dates, you'll see my point. Either way, the fact that this game was created by Insomniac, the same developers who created Ratchet & Clank and Spyro franchises, is pretty interesting, since Sunset Overdrive borrows a lot of its mechanics from these games while also being its own thing. It's hilariously vulgar and cartoony, with a great combat system that perfectly complements its traversal system, which I'll get into later. In short, this game is definitely a hidden gem, and you, yes, you, should definitely play. Just keep watching and I'll show you even more reasons on why you should. Seriously, please keep watching. I need to watch time. Also subscribe. Now I'm gonna be real with you. This game is definitely more focused on action and seeing things go than having an incredibly in-depth, breathtaking story that'll make you shed a tear. And that's a good thing. That's the whole reason I bought this game. When it comes to its narrative, Sunset Overdrive takes full advantage of the fact that it doesn't take itself seriously. At all. I mean, the main character himself throughout the story is constantly breaking the fourth wall.
How'd you think you were gonna do that when I got this here gun?
Yeah, I got guns too.
Damn!
Deadpool would be proud.
Did I leave the stove on?
Anyway, here's a short summary of the plot of this game, with minimal spoilers. Sunset Overdrive takes place in Sunset City, a super vibrant and futuristic metropolis located in the US of A.
God bless America!
In 2027, a corporation called Fisco released an energy drink called Overcharged Delirium XT into the city. But since Fisco decided to skip health protocols, it was fundamentally fricked, and drinking it caused your endocrine systems to go into overdrive and mutates your body, turning you into an overcharged drinker or OD. At the start of Horror Night, you were just a garbage picker at the Overcharged release party, but now, you roam the streets, meeting enemies that want to shoot, smash, and explode you dead, while also meeting other survivor groups just as messed up as you. Throughout the game, your only goal is to escape the city. You'll also be meeting other survivors who share similar goals, like Walter, the guy who saved your butt during Horror Night. Now he's planning to make you lighter to fly out the city and nice the glider's destroyed.
Yeah.
I meant you.
You'll also be meeting other groups of survivors like the Oxfords, who are mostly just spoiled rich kids who paid their way into the best college in the city.
Hey guys, I want you to meet my new friend.
Shut up, Sam.
True Bushido, who study the blade. The Fogathians, who are insanely dedicated LARPers who somehow survived Horror Night. And Las Katrinas, a group of ninja cheerleaders who are honestly pretty cool since they take care of sick kids during the apocalypse. Alright, enough of the boring stuff. On to the fun stuff, the gameplay. Oh man, Sunset Overdrive's gameplay is something else. It took some aspects of other games of Insomniac, namely Ratchet & Clank's weapon system, added its own charm with an incredibly fun traversal system, and ties everything together with amps to upgrade both these mechanics. Let's talk about traversal first, you know, cause I won't stop hyping it up. Movement is very, very, very important in Sunset Overdrive. Enemies, especially OD, come in crazy large hordes, meaning if you don't keep moving, you're gonna die, boy! So since you'll get mauled, shot, smashed and bashed if you play solely on the ground, You have the ability to grind, bounce, wall run, air dash, glide on water, Superman leap out of water. Seriously, where does this guy learn to do all this crap? Why be a garbage picker at some party, probably barely getting paid minimum wage, when you could be the best Olympic athlete to ever exist?
Let's get back to the point!
You have lots of options to get around hordes of enemies just as well as getting around Sunset City. The map is fairly huge but super dense, meaning that you'll constantly be able to reach movement hooks without touching the ground once. Movement in this game is just amazing. So amazing in fact that I'm 99.9% sure that the traversal system in Insomniac's Spider-Man is somewhat based on Sunset Overdrive. Come on, I mean, I'm sure that's not a reach, right? Right. All I'm saying is, movement in this game is great, and though it takes some getting used to, once you do get used to it, it feels so smooth, and it's super fun. Alright, let's talk about weapons now. Sunset Overdrive has tons of weapons to play around with. We got CD launchers, teddy bear RPGs, this thing, acid sprinklers, firework launchers. You can even use one of the physical bot's rifles. Even better that there's no reloading. That's right, you can keep your finger on that trigger and never need to waste time reloading, till you run out of ammo. Then you can just use your melee for anything that gets too close. The weapons in this game all have different uses in different situations. For example, High Fidelity and TN Teddy for dealing with hordes of OD, Dirty Harry for human enemies and larger OD, Acid Sprinkler for defense, AKFU and F-Off are for basically any situation, and so on. Different weapons also deal more damage against certain types of enemies. Like, weapons that utilize fire is better against OD, and electric damage is better against physical bots. Almost every weapon is supplied by Two Hat Jack, who gives you weapons in exchange for overcharge, which you get by killing enemies, smashing things, and completing quests. So, the weapons in this game, on their own, pretty good. There's a large selection of interesting weapons to play with, all with their own strengths and weaknesses, but with amps powering them up. Oh man. Amps, as I said earlier, are what brings Sunset Overdrive's gameplay together by rewarding you with power-ups for killing things and keeping up your combos. So first off, let's talk about how you even use amps. You may have noticed this meter in the top right corner. That's the style meter. As you do things like grinding, bouncing, and wall running, this meter fills up. Bonus points if you're blasting things while moving around. Each time the meter fills up, it gains a level. You can equip 1 amp for each category, except hero amps, which you hold 2 of, and you can activate these amps by leveling up your style meter. At level 0, you're plain as all heck. At level 1, hero amps are activated. At level 2, weapon and melee amps are activated. At level 3, epic amps are activated. And at level 4, oh yeah, a little PSA. To equip weapon amps, your weapon has to be at least level 2. It isn't difficult to level up a weapon, you just need to kill things with it. Literally the thing you do all game. It's also a good idea to keep an eye on your combo counter, which basically increases anytime you use movement and resets when you touch the ground. So what exactly do these amps do, you may be asking? Well, things like fireballs, stunning enemies, calling thunder from the sky, an epic announcer who announces your epicness, freaking nukes, freaking confetti, flowers. I'll never understand, man. So getting amps is fairly easy. They're provided by this guy, Floyd, who's maybe the best character in the game. You either get them from occasional night defenses where you have to defend one or even multiple objectives from OD, or by purchasing them from him using various collectibles around the city. Oh yeah, before I forget, there's also overdrives. You can get badges for doing things like grinding, bouncing, and killing specific enemy factions, and you can use these badges to unlock overdrives. They get small boosts like doing more damage with automatic weapons, or doing more damage against OD. To be honest, I don't really care about this feature and I'd probably forget about it if they didn't constantly remind me. That's probably why they keep reminding me. Well, now I think it's about time I talk about the things in this game that want you dead, including bosses, so spoilers for that. There are 3 factions of enemies in Sunset Overdrive. OD, who got mutated by overcharge, Scabs, who are bandits that hang around the city doing things that bandits do. Seriously, who decided to name these guys Scabs? That's just nasty. And last but not least, Physical Bots, who are deployed by Physical themselves to silence anyone or anything that could expose overcharge to the rest of the world. Now, I like my enemies diverse, you know, to keep gameplay fresh and, well, diverse. And Sunset Overdrive delivers fairly nicely. All three factions have their strengths and weaknesses against different weapons and elements, just like I spoke about earlier. Just as these factions have their ways of screwing you over and generally making you suffer. For example, the Gunkrody, who could shoot out these ice mines on places you would normally bounce and grind and blow up when you touch them. And I mean, you could shoot the mines, however Gunkers shoot them out so frequently that if multiple of them show up, honestly I'm just projecting, I hate these guys. There's also bigger enemies that you can consider mini bosses, like wingers, Herkers, spawners, and tank bots, that you should generally put more focus on, since if you don't, well, they'll absolutely destroy you. And then there's the big bosses, the big boys, the worst of the worst, who, to be honest, are pretty easy. That's kind of just a bigger problem with the overall difficulty of this game. Since you can't really choose a difficulty, you can't necessarily change how difficult enemies are and such. There are 4 bosses, a huge fizzy balloon, an OD dragon, the king scab, and the final boss is just an enormous building. If these bosses are anything like the rest of this game, then they should be 1. Fun to fight, 2. Unique, and 3. Make you feel extremely cool while you're fighting them. Cool is a word I'm going to be using a lot for describing these guys. These bosses are honestly not that hard. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't expect a super hard boss that requires 100% of your attention while millions of projectiles are getting blasted at you, and the boss has 3 phases that if you mess up for even a millisecond you die! Let's take a look at the King Scab for example.
Alright nerds, this ends now!
This fight is, in my opinion, the hardest and longest fight in the game. This fight takes place in the roller coaster castle, which you break in by escorting a siege craft that the fart guards constructed while fighting off scabs and the projectiles that they launch at said siege craft. After you get in the castle, you have to traverse around it and destroy fireworks attached to the towers. Now, 2 things to note. The layout of the roller coaster is pretty good, incredibly dense with tons of movement hooks. There's also quite a bit going on with there being carts that spit fire at you and can knock you off the roller coaster, and also OD, but it's really just basic OD so it's not really a problem. Anyway, once you destroy the fireworks, the King Scab finally stops being a little beach and you get to fight him. He's on a ride with 3 destructible carts that occasionally leave fire on the tracks. Once you get to the cart he's on, you realize you can't just shoot it, so of course the most logical solution is to get a Minotaur helmet and proceed to ram into his cart head on. It was cool as hell. The other bosses weren't nearly as difficult. For example, Fizzy, who I give a pass since he's the first boss. His setting is honestly sick and generally was super fun to fight either way. The dragon is pretty interesting since you can't just mindlessly shoot at him for most of the fight. You gotta get on his back and strike him with your melee, or even a freaking lightning bolt. While you're trying to get on his back, you need to dodge OD. Especially these frozen fricks, yo seriously I hate these guys. You also need to shoot off spikes that grow on his back. You do this 3 times, which I really don't like. However, cool animation when you strike him, it's all good. So in general, all around easy fights, but I think it's completely fine since, again, these bosses are incredibly fun and interesting. Except this guy, we gotta talk about this freak. So you actually fight Fizzy twice. Once as a giant balloon and again as a giant building super weapon literally called the Building. Now, being a final boss, you would expect him to be pretty hard, and while he isn't necessarily easy, he doesn't really have much going for him. Basically, you need to grind on the arms of this building, bounce on some platforms, then get on the top to shoot its power core. Then you do that 2 more times. Each time you break his core, he runs off and you gotta chase him. He occasionally launches lasers from the sky, which will probably miss you every single time. And when you're grinding on the building, he'll shock the poles, but they aren't that hard to dodge if you're fast. It's basically the dragon fight with extra steps, and no cool animation, so it's objectively a garbage boss fight. Nah, I'm kidding, kinda. It's not that I think the boss is bad, it's low-key tedious, but I'm glad it isn't worse. Just my opinion again, but it'd be pretty sick if the final boss was similar to Fizzy's first boss fight, minus being really simple. Alright, so to conclude, Sunset Overdrive is a huge blast to play. It's hard to believe that this game is like 7 years old, because even now, its smooth gameplay, funny dialogue, and overall vibe of the game still holds up very nicely. I played this game on the PC port and it's definitely better than I heard it was back in 2018. At first I tried playing this game with a PS4 controller through Steam, but it just wouldn't work. Not that I could really fault it since it was only released on Xbox and PC. What's pretty interesting though is how Sony acquired Insomniac back in 2019. And despite Insomniac developing mostly PS4 exclusives, Sunset Overdrive is an exception. Does that mean that because Sony now owns Sunset Overdrive, there'll be a sequel? It would make sense because there's an obvious foreshadowing of a possible sequel, right? Well, the unfortunate answer is, nah. Insomniac is actually very passionate about the franchise. However, the chairman of SIE said that they'd rather focus on other games like Spider-Man and Ratchet & Clank. Seems like Insomniac are the only ones who are down to make a sequel for Sunset. Damn shame. I still think that Sunset Overdrive is definitely worth playing. If you do want to play it, you can get it on Xbox or Steam for $25 or $5 when it's on sale. Or you can even get the game on Game Pass, which is all around a great deal. Alright, so this has been the end of the video. I really enjoyed making this video and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I know you guys probably have never seen my previous videos. It's just basically just no commentary videos from 2 years ago, but I decided to try something new and I don't regret it. It's been really fun. I'm planning to make more videos probably by the end of the year. I have much more plans. I have much more fun videos to make, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that. If you made it this far, that's crazy. I really appreciate it. You were a real one. Alright, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Later.